Ambassador Elena Vasquez had never felt so small in her entire life. The shuttle doors opened and she stepped onto Station Korath 7, the massive space station that served as the capital of the Galactic Concord. A place where hundreds of alien species came together to trade, negotiate, and decide the fate of entire worlds. Elena was the first human to walk these halls as an official representative of Earth, and she had prepared for this moment her whole career. But nothing could have prepared her for the reception she received. The welcoming committee stood in a half-circle before her, and not a single one of them looked impressed. In fact, most of them looked like they were trying not to laugh. The Vrexy delegation clicked their mandibles together in what Elena's translator identified as amusement. These insectoid beings stood nearly 2 meters tall, with gleaming black exoskeletons and razor-sharp limbs that could slice through metal. Beside them, the Torvan rumbled deep in their massive chests. These warriors were the most feared soldiers in the galaxy, standing 3 meters tall and covered in natural armor that could stop plasma fire. Their forearms were thick with muscle, and their faces were like ancient stone carvings come to life. And at the center of them all floated High Arbiter Zolkith, a being made entirely of living crystal. Light refracted through his body in rainbow patterns, and his voice rang like wind chimes when he spoke. "Welcome, representative of Earth," Zolkith said, though his tone suggested he was welcoming a particularly uninteresting pet rather than a diplomat. "We have reviewed your species with great interest." Elena straightened her spine and smiled her most diplomatic smile. "Thank you, High Arbiter. Humanity is honored to be considered for membership in the Galactic Concord." A Torvan warrior snorted, and the sound was like thunder. "Considered," he repeated. "That is a generous word for what we are doing here." Zolkith raised a crystalline hand for silence. "Let us proceed to the assessment chamber. Your species must be properly classified before any further discussions can take place." Elena followed the delegation through winding corridors, filled with wonders she could barely comprehend. Ships the size of cities floated past massive windows, and creatures of every shape and size moved through the halls around her. Some stopped to stare at her with obvious curiosity. Others looked away quickly, as if embarrassed to be seen near such a pathetic creature. The assessment chamber was a vast amphitheater, with seats rising up in endless tiers. Thousands of alien observers had gathered to witness humanity's judgment, and Elena felt their eyes pressing down on her like a physical weight. Zolkith took his place at the central podium and activated a holographic display. "The Biological Assessment Council has completed its analysis of the human species," he announced, "and we will now present our findings." Elena watched as images of humans appeared in the air. Farmers, soldiers, scientists, children playing in parks. Her people looked so fragile compared to the armored giants surrounding her. "Humans possess no natural weapons," Zolkith began. "No claws, no fangs, no venom, no defensive spines or shells. Their skin can be pierced by the most basic of tools." The audience murmured in agreement. "Their senses are remarkably dull. They cannot see in darkness, cannot hear frequencies beyond a narrow range. And their sense of smell is nearly non-existent compared to most species." More murmuring, and Elena heard what sounded like laughter from the Vrexy section. "Their young require nearly 2 decades to reach maturity, an absurdly long developmental period that leaves them vulnerable. Their reproduction rate is slow, and their lifespans are unremarkable." Zolkith paused, and the hologram zoomed in on a human standing next to a Torvan warrior. The comparison was almost cruel. "In conclusion," the High Arbiter declared, "the Biological Assessment Council has classified humanity as Tier 9, a prey species. You will be assigned quarters in the Protected Species Ward, where you will be safe from any accidental harm." The chamber erupted in sounds that Elena's translators struggled to process. Some were laughing, others were simply making noises of contempt, and a few seemed almost pitying. A Vrexy diplomat leaned toward her and clicked softly. "Do not feel shame, little human. Many prey species live comfortable lives under Concord protection. You will be well cared for." Elena felt heat rising in her cheeks, but she kept her expression neutral. "Thank you for your concern," she said carefully, "but I wonder if your assessment might be incomplete." Zolkith's crystals flickered with what might have been irritation. "Our assessment is based on biological fact, Ambassador. There is nothing incomplete about it." "Of course," Elena replied. "I meant no offense. I am simply curious whether your council examined our history as well as our biology." The High Arbiter waved a dismissive hand. "History is irrelevant to biological classification. You are what your bodies make you. Nothing more." Elena nodded slowly and allowed herself to be escorted to the protected species ward. Her quarters were comfortable enough, with soft lighting and padded walls designed to prevent injury to the delicate creatures housed there. Her neighbors included the pillowy, beings that looked like floating jellyfish made of cotton, and the munta, small furry creatures with enormous eyes that seemed perpetually terrified. Once she was alone, Elena activated her secure communication device and connected to Earth Command. General Marcus Chen's face appeared on the screen, his expression serious. "Report, Ambassador. How did the classification go?" Elena sighed. "Tier 9, General. Prey species. They put me in a ward with creatures that are afraid of loud noises." To her surprise, General Chun smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "Good. Good, sir. Let them underestimate us, Ambassador. We have been underestimated before. By every empire that thought they could conquer us. By every predator that thought we were easy meals. By every force of nature that tried to wipe us out." He leaned closer to the camera. "Do your job. Make nice with the aliens, and let them keep thinking we are soft. When the time comes, they will learn what prey species from Earth are capable of." Elena was about to respond when an alarm began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed in her quarters, and she heard screaming from somewhere in the distance. Not the screaming of the timid munta, but deep, terrified roars from creatures much larger. A communication device crackled with an emergency broadcast in dozens of languages. "Alert! Containment breach in Sector Null. All personnel evacuate to designated safe zones." "This is not a drill." General Chun's eyes narrowed. "What is happening there, Ambassador?" Elena moved to her door and looked out into the corridor. Tovam warriors were running past, actual fear visible on their stone-like faces. "I do not know, General," she whispered, "but whatever it is, it has the galaxy's greatest warriors running scared." Through the chaos, she heard a sound that made her blood run cold. A roar that seemed to shake the very walls of the station, a sound of hunger and rage and ancient, terrible power. Something had awakened on Station Kareth 7, and the universe would never be the same. The screaming had not stopped for 3 hours. Elena stood in the emergency command center, surrounded by panicking aliens who had completely forgotten that she was supposed to be a helpless prey species. Right now, everyone was prey. High Arbiter Zolkith flickered with stress patterns as he received report after report, each one worse than the last. His crystalline body had turned from rainbow colors to a deep troubled red. "Speak," he commanded a trembling Vrexy officer. "Tell me exactly what has happened." The Vrexy could barely form words. "The Keth, Vorik, High Arbiter. It has escaped from the Forbidden Zone. The stasis field failed and it broke free." The room went silent. Elena watched as every alien in the command center seemed to freeze in place, their faces showing expressions of pure terror. "That is impossible," Zolkith whispered. "The Keth Vorik has been contained for 10,000 years. The stasis technology was perfect. It was not perfect enough," the Vrexy replied. "The creature is loose in the lower cargo decks, and it is hunting." Elena stepped forward. Excuse me, but what exactly is a HFY? Every eye in the room turned to her, and she saw something she had not expected. Pity. A Torvan commander named Gralanek approached her, his massive form casting a shadow over his small human body. The HFY is death itself, little human. It is a creature from a world so dangerous that the Concord quarantined the entire sector. He activated a holographic display, and Elena saw the monster for the first time. It was 12 meters of nightmare-given flesh. 6 limbs ending in talons that looked sharp enough to cut through starship hulls. A body covered in bioarmor that shifted and adapted to any threat. And eyes, dozens of eyes, all burning with a terrible intelligence. The HFY is not just a predator, Gralanek continued. It is the apex of its world, a creature that evolved to hunt everything and fear nothing. It is smart, Ambassador. Nearly as smart as us, but with none of our mercy. Elena studied the creature on the display. How did the Concord capture it in the first place? Zolkit answered, his voice heavy with old grief. We did not capture it, Ambassador. We sacrificed an entire fleet to contain it. 300,000 soldiers died to put that monster in stasis, and now it walks free again. Alarms continued to blare as more reports flooded in. The HFY had killed 17 Torvan warriors in the first hour. It had torn through reinforced bulkheads like paper. It had destroyed 3 security checkpoints without slowing down. We are deploying our elite hunter squads, Gralanek announced. Our finest warriors will stop this creature. Elena watched the tactical display as teams of Torvan soldiers moved into position. They were impressive fighters, armed with plasma cannons and wearing the best armor the galaxy could produce. The first squad made contact with the HFY in Cargo Bay 12. Elena could see everything through the security cameras. The Torvan warriors were brave, charging at the creature with weapons blazing and war cries thundering. The battle lasted 43 seconds. The HFY moved like liquid death, dodging plasma fire with impossible grace and striking with devastating precision. The Torvan armor that could stop almost any weapon crumpled like foil under those terrible talons. By the end, 8 elite warriors lay dead, and the HFY did not have a single wound. The command center erupted in chaos. Officers were shouting orders, civilians were screaming for evacuation, and High Arbiter Zolkith stood frozen in shock. This cannot be happening, he murmured. We are the Galactic Concord. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. We cannot be brought low by a single beast, but they were being brought low. Over the next 6 hours, 3 more elite squads were sent against the HFY, and 3 more elite squads were slaughtered. The creature seemed to be toying with them, learning their tactics and adapting to every strategy. It had figured out how to avoid the motion sensors and how to disable the security doors. Evacuation was ordered, but the HFY had already damaged the main docking base. Ships could not land to rescue the thousands of beings trapped on the station. Elena watched it all with growing frustration. These aliens had called her species weak, had laughed at humanity's lack of natural weapons, and now they were being torn apart by a single predator. Finally, Zolkith approached her, and she could see how much it cost him to speak his next words. Ambassador Vasquez, your vessel is still docked at the secondary bay. The creature has not reached that section yet. Elena raised an eyebrow. Yes, the ISV Perseverance is standing by. We would ask, Zolkith said, each word seeming to cause him pain, if your ship might assist with evacuating key personnel. We understand this is a great deal to ask of a prey species, but you are desperate, Elena finished for him. The High Arbiter's crystals flickered with shame. Yes, Elena activated her communicator. Captain Riz, this is Ambassador Vasquez. Are you receiving? A calm voice responded. Loud and clear, Ambassador. We have been monitoring the situation. Quite a mess you have got over there. The Concorde is requesting evacuation assistance, Elena said. They have a creature loose on the station, and their warriors cannot stop it. There was a pause. And then Captain Diego Reyes asked a question that made every alien in the command center stare at Elena in confusion. How big is it, and does it bleed? Elena looked at the tactical display, at the monster that had killed nearly 100 of the galaxy's finest soldiers. It is about 12 meters, Captain. And yes, the Torvan managed to wound it slightly in the last engagement. Excellent, Captain Reyes replied, and Elena could hear the smile in his voice. Tell the High Arbiter that the Perseverance will not be evacuating anyone. Zolkith's crystals flared with anger. What? You would abandon us? I knew humans were cowardly, but this... You misunderstand, Elena interrupted. Captain, please clarify your intentions. We are not running, Ambassador. We are suiting up. Tell the aliens to clear out of the lower cargo decks. The humans are going hunting. The command center fell absolutely silent. Gralanek stepped forward, his stone face twisted with disbelief. Hunting? You cannot be serious. That creature has killed our greatest warriors. What could a handful of soft humans possibly do against it? Elena smiled, and for the first time since arriving at the station, she did not feel small. Commander Gralanek, you classified us as prey, but you never asked what happened to the predators on our world. She turned back to the display, watching as the HFY prowled through the cargo decks, searching for its next victim. On Earth, we did not evolve claws or armor or venom. We evolved something else. Something that made every predator on our planet learn to fear us. And what was that? Zolkith asked. Elena's smile grew wider. Patience, High Arbiter. Patience and a very long memory. The Perseverance crew will be aboard in 2 hours. The humans were coming, and they were not coming to run. 12 humans walked through the airlock, and the aliens who had gathered to watch them could not believe what they were seeing. The Torvan warriors had worn gleaming power armor and carried plasma cannons that could melt through steel. The humans wore simple tactical suits and carried weapons that looked like ancient relics. Gralanek examined one of the human rifles with obvious confusion. This fires metal projectiles, he said. We stopped using kinetic weapons 3,000 years ago. They are useless against armored targets. Sergeant Maria Kowalski took her rifle back and checked the ammunition. With respect, Commander, your plasma weapons did not seem to work very well either. The Torvan had no response to that. Captain Diego Reyes gathered his team in the staging area and began his briefing. He was a calm man with steady hands and eyes that had seen more battles than most aliens could imagine. Listen up, he said. This creature is fast, strong, and smart. The Torvan tried to fight it head-on, and they lost. We are not going to make that mistake. Dr. Yuki Tanaka stepped forward, a tablet in her hands displaying everything the station's sensors had recorded about the HFY. She was the team's wildlife biologist, a small woman who had spent her life studying the deadliest creatures on Earth. I have been analyzing the creature's behavior, she said. It is an ambush predator by nature. It prefers to attack from hiding and overwhelm its prey with speed and power. So we do not give it the chance to ambush us, said Corporal James Chen, checking his equipment. Correct, Dr. Tanaka continued. But there is more. The creature is highly territorial. It has been marking areas of the cargo deck with chemical signals, establishing a hunting ground. And based on its movement patterns, I believe it has created a den somewhere in Cargo Bay 17, Captain Reyes nodded. A den means it has a place it returns to, a place it feels safe. That gives us options. The aliens watched in confusion as the humans unpacked their equipment. Alongside the rifles, they had brought rope, chemical containers, electronic devices, and what appeared to be large nets made of some kind of metallic wire. What is your strategy? High Arbiter Zolkith asked. Will you attempt to overwhelm it with numbers? Captain Reyes laughed. We have 12 people, High Arbiter. Overwhelming is not really an option. No, we are going to do what humans have always done when facing a bigger, stronger predator. And what is that? We are going to make its life absolutely miserable until it makes a mistake. The hunt began. The first phase was reconnaissance. The humans moved through the cargo decks in pairs, never engaging the creature directly, but always watching. They planted motion sensors and cameras, building a map of everywhere the HFY traveled. Dr. Tanaka studied the data obsessively. It drinks from the water recycling tanks in Section 4, she reported. It rests in its den for approximately 2 hours after each kill. And it has a slight hesitation when turning to its left. Probably an old injury. The aliens had never thought to look for weaknesses. They had simply seen a monster and attacked. Phase 2 was harassment. The humans began poisoning the water supplies the creature used. Not enough to kill it, but enough to make it sick and irritable. They set up sound emitters that played high-frequency noises whenever the HFY tried to rest. The creature grew frustrated. It tore apart 3 sound emitters, but could not find them all. It stopped drinking from the poisoned tanks, but could not find clean water. It tried to sleep, but was constantly disturbed. You are torturing it, Gralanek observed, watching the tactical display. We are exhausting it, Captain Reyes corrected. A tired predator is a sloppy predator. On the second day of the hunt, the HFY changed its behavior. Instead of waiting for prey to come to it, it began actively hunting the humans. Private First Class Omar Hassan was the first to die. He was checking a sensor when the creature burst through a wall behind him. His death was quick, but his screams echoed through the team's communicators. Omar is down, Sergeant Kowalski reported, her voice steady despite the loss. The creature is adapting. Then we adapt faster, Captain Reyes replied. The humans changed their tactics. They never stayed in one place for more than 10 minutes. They laid false trails using thermal blankets and recorded heartbeat sounds. They turned the cargo decks into a maze of deception. The HFY killed again on the third day. Twins Lisa and Laura Park, who had served together since basic training. They died holding hands, having led the creature into a corridor rigged with explosive charges. The explosion did not kill the HFY, but it wounded it. 3 of its eyes were destroyed, and 1 of its limbs was damaged. It bleeds, Dr. Tanaka said, examining the creature's blood left behind at the blast site. And now we know its blood is copper-based. That means it is vulnerable to certain acids. The humans pressed their advantage. They coated surfaces with compounds that burned the creature's feet. They set up ultraviolet lights that blinded its remaining eyes. They laid trap after trap. Why do you not simply leave? Zolkith asked Captain Reyes on the 4th day. You have lost 3 soldiers. The creature is wounded, but still deadly. There is no shame in retreat. Captain Reyes looked at the High Arbiter with something like pity. High Arbiter, my people did not spend 2 million years climbing to the top of Earth's food chain by retreating. We have invested too much in this hunt to stop now. On the 5th day, they sprung the final trap. The HFY had been driven toward Cargo Bay 23 through a careful series of blocked passages and chemical deterrents. It was exhausted, wounded, half-blind, and desperate. When it entered the bay, the humans were waiting. Sergeant Kowalski fired first, her rifle sending armor-piercing rounds into the creature's damaged side. Corporal Chun activated the MP device, scrambling the creature's bioelectric organs and sending it into convulsions. The HFY roared and charged, killing Private Amar Beckel with a sweep of its claws. But as it moved, the monofilament nets fell from above, wrapping around its limbs and cutting into its armor. Captain Reyes activated the emergency hull clamps, and massive magnetic restraints shot from the walls, pinning the creature in place. It thrashed and screamed, a sound of rage and confusion. This had never happened before. No prey had ever fought back like this. 4 humans lay dead, but the HFY, the terror of Sector Null, the monster that had haunted the galaxy for 10,000 years, was bound and bleeding on the floor. High Arbiter Zolkith and Commander Grolak arrived to witness the impossible. The creature that had killed nearly 100 Torvan warriors had been brought down by 8 surviving humans. "How?" Grolak whispered. "How did you do this?" Elena Vasquez stepped forward, looking at the defeated monster. "They did what humans have always done, Commander. They refused to give up." Captain Reyes wiped blood from a cut on his forehead and looked at the creature. "Now what do we do with it?" Elena asked. The captain smiled, a strange and terrifying expression. "Ambassador, we do what humans do best." He turned to Sergeant Kowalski. "Maria, break out the cooking equipment." The alien stared in complete confusion. "We are going to eat it." High Arbiter Zolkith had lived for 9,000 years and had witnessed countless strange events across the galaxy. He had seen stars die and civilizations rise and fall. He had negotiated peace between species that had warred for millennia. But nothing, in all those years, had prepared him for what he was witnessing now. The humans had converted Cargo Bay 7 into something they called a cookout area, and the smells coming from that bay were spreading through the entire station. Zolkith floated through the doors, flanked by a dozen guards who looked more confused than protective. What he saw inside made his crystalline body flicker through colors he had not displayed in centuries. The HFY, the terror of Sector Null, the nightmare that had haunted the Concord for 10,000 years, had been butchered. Its massive body had been expertly carved into sections by humans who seemed to know exactly what they were doing. Dr. Tanaka was directing the process, pointing out which cuts of meat were safe to eat and which organs might be toxic. "The muscle tissue from the hind limbs is excellent," she was saying. "Similar to Earth reptiles but denser. The tail meat should be tender if prepared correctly." Commander Grolak stood frozen at the entrance, his stone face showing more expression than it had in decades. "This is desecration," he whispered. "This is madness." Sergeant Maria Kowalski looked up from her work. She had set up a massive grill made from station equipment, and she was currently seasoning a slab of HFY meat that weighed at least 50 kilograms. "This is barbecue," she corrected. "And there is nothing mad about it." The other surviving humans were busy with various tasks. Corporal Chun was preparing what he called a dry rub, mixing spices that the humans had brought from their ship. Another soldier was setting up a makeshift smoker using cargo containers and heating elements. Ambassador Elena Vasquez approached the alien observers with a warm smile. "High Arbiter, Commander, please come in. You are welcome to join us." "Join you," Zolkith's voice crackled with disbelief. "Join you in consuming the flesh of the most dangerous creature in the known galaxy. That is the general idea." "Yes." The High Arbiter looked around the bay, trying to process what he was seeing. "Why? Why would you do this? You could have simply killed it and disposed of the body. That would have been the sensible thing to do." Elena considered the question carefully. "High Arbiter, on Earth we have a tradition. When we overcome a great challenge, when we defeat a powerful enemy, we honor that struggle by making use of what we have conquered." She gestured to the grill, where the first pieces of meat were beginning to sizzle. "This creature killed 4 of our people. Good soldiers who had families and dreams and lives ahead of them. We could not save them, but we can honor them by not letting their sacrifice be meaningless. And eating your enemy honors them. It does in our culture," Elena replied. "We consume their strength, their power. We take what made them dangerous and make it part of ourselves. It is an ancient tradition, older than our written history. The smell of cooking meat was now filling the entire bay. It was a rich, complex aroma that made even the alien observers feel something strange stirring inside them. Sergeant Kowalski announced that the first batch was ready, and the humans gathered around. Captain Reyes raised a container of liquid that the humans called whiskey. To Omar, Lisa, Lavra, and Amar, he said, his voice thick with emotion. They died like warriors, and now they are avenged. To our fallen, the other humans echoed, and they drank. Then they began to eat. Zolkith watched in horror as these soft, weak creatures casually consumed the flesh of a monster that had terrorized the galaxy. They made sounds of appreciation, discussing the flavor and texture as if they were at some kind of social gathering. The tail meat is incredible, Corporal Chun said through a mouthful of food. Kind of like alligator but more savory. I told you it would be good, Sergeant Kowalski replied. The trick is getting the heat just right. Too hot, and you lose the moisture. Commander Grolanak made a sound that might have been a whimper. You hunt your prey for days without rest. You torture them with poison and noise. And then you eat them. Captain Reyes swallowed a bite and nodded. Pretty much, yes. How did you think we survived on Earth? I thought you were prey, Grolanak said weakly. We are not prey, Dr. Tanaka said, joining the conversation. We have never been prey. Oh, other creatures tried to hunt us. Many of them were much bigger and stronger than we were. She took another bite and smiled. Do you know what happened to them, Commander? Grolanak shook his massive head. We ate them. We ate the cave bears and the direwolves and the giant cats. We ate the mammoths and the giant sloths. Anything that tried to hunt us, we eventually put on a plate. A young Vrexy diplomat had edged closer to the grill, curiosity apparently overcoming fear. You ate all the predators on your planet. Sergeant Kowalski laughed. Kid, we did not just eat the predators. We ate everything. Predators, prey, plants, fungi, things from the ocean, things that fly, things that burrow underground. If it held still long enough, humans figured out a way to cook it. But the toxins, the Vrexy protested. Many creatures are poisonous. Surely you cannot eat everything. You would be surprised what becomes edible with the right preparation, Dr. Tanaka said. There is a fish on Earth called the pufferfish that contains a poison capable of killing 30 humans. We consider it a delicacy. The Vrexy made a clicking sound of pure disbelief. Elena approached Zolkith with a plate. On it was a perfectly prepared piece of Kethvorak meat, seasoned and grilled to perfection. Would you like to try some High Arbiter? Zolkith's crystals flickered rapidly. I am not certain my biology would allow me to consume organic matter. Then just stay and observe, Elena said. This is who we are, High Arbiter. This is what you missed in your biological assessment. You looked at our bodies and saw weakness, but you never looked at our spirits. She set the plate down and returned to her fellow humans. They were telling stories now, sharing memories of the soldiers who had died. There was sadness, but also laughter, and a fierce pride that seemed to warm the air itself. Commander Grolanak sat down heavily, his massive armored body suddenly looking very tired. I have fought in 17 wars, he said to no one in particular. I have killed enemies beyond counting and watched my warriors die on dozens of worlds. But I have never seen anything like this. The young Vrexy diplomat edged even closer. Is that really good? It asked, pointing to the meat. Corporal Chum held out a small piece. Try it and find out. The Vrexy hesitated, then took the meat and placed it in its mandibles. It chewed slowly, its compound eyes widening. That is remarkable, it said. What is this flavor? I have never tasted anything like it. That is called barbecue sauce, Sergeant Kowalski said proudly. Family recipe, passed down for 5 generations. By the end of the night, 3 more aliens had tried the Kethvorak meat. A Vrexy trade delegate, a small creature from a species Elena did not recognize. And surprisingly, Commander Grolinak himself. The Torvan warrior sat among the humans, a piece of meat in his massive hands, a confused expression on his stone face. "It is good," he admitted. "I hate that it is good." Captain Rias clapped him on the shoulder, or at least as high as he could reach. "That is the spirit, Commander." As the night wore on, the atmosphere in the cargo bay shifted. What had begun as a horrifying spectacle had become something else, something almost like a celebration. Enemies had been defeated, fallen comrades had been honored, and a creature of nightmare had been transformed into nourishment. High Arbiter Zolkith remained floating at the edge of the gathering, watching silently. His crystals had gradually shifted from red to a thoughtful purple. He had much to think about, and many classifications to reconsider. 1 week had passed since the night of the cookout, and the Galactic Concord had never been so quiet. The assembly chamber was packed with representatives from every species in known space. This was the largest gathering in over a century, and everyone knew why they had come. The humans were about to be reclassified. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood at the center of the chamber, but this time she was not alone. Captain Reyes and the 7 surviving members of his team stood with her, their tactical suits replaced with formal uniforms. The seats reserved for humanity were no longer in the protected species section. Instead, they had been moved to the front of the chamber in a place of honor. High Arbiter Zolkith floated to the central podium, his crystalline body glowing with colors that seemed more respectful than the dismissive tones he had displayed at the first assembly. "This emergency session has been called to address the matter of human classification," he announced. "In light of recent events, the Biological Assessment Council has conducted a new review of the human species." The chamber was absolutely silent. Even the usually chattering Vrexy had nothing to say. Zolkith activated a holographic display, and new images of humans appeared. But these were not the soft, vulnerable images from before. These showed human hunters tracking prey across grasslands, human warriors facing down enormous predators, human explorers conquering every environment their planet had to offer. "Our initial assessment focused solely on human biology," Zolkith began. "We noted their lack of natural weapons, their fragile bodies, their dull senses. We concluded that they were a prey species, and we were wrong." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. "The Council has now examined human history, and what we found has forced us to completely reconsider our understanding of what makes a species dangerous." The hologram changed to show a map of Earth, with lines tracing the spread of humanity across every continent. Humans evolved on a planet of extreme danger. Their world contains predators, parasites, diseases, and environmental hazards that would destroy most civilized species. And yet, Zolkith continued, humans did not simply survive. They conquered. New images appeared. Cave paintings showing humans hunting mammoths. Ancient warriors riding horses into battle. Ships sailing across vast oceans. They developed tools to make up for their physical weakness. Weapons that could kill from a distance. Traps that could capture creatures 10 times their size. Strategies that turned their apparent weaknesses into strengths. But most remarkably, Zolkith said, his voice dropping to something almost like awe, they developed a hunting technique that has no parallel anywhere in the galaxy. The hologram showed a human runner, jogging across an open plain, following the tracks of a fleeing animal. Humans are persistent predators. They cannot run as fast as their prey, but they can run longer. They track their targets for hours, sometimes days, never stopping, never resting, until their prey simply collapses from exhaustion. Commander Grolinak nodded slowly. He had seen this firsthand during the hunt for the Kethvorak. This same persistence applies to everything humans do, Zolkith continued. They do not give up. They do not accept defeat. They simply keep adapting, keep learning, keep pushing until they achieve their goal. The High Arbiter paused, and the hologram changed one more time. It showed the cookout, the humans consuming the flesh of the Kethvorak. And when they have defeated their enemy, Zolkith said, they do something that terrifies us more than any weapon or strategy. They eat it. The chamber erupted in nervous sounds. Humans consume capsaicin, a chemical weapon that causes pain in most species, as a flavoring for their food. They drink ethanol, a substance toxic to most life forms, for recreation. They have developed recipes for nearly every dangerous creature on their world. A Vrexy delegate raised a limb. High Arbiter, are you saying humans will eat anything, not anything? Elena spoke up. We do have standards. But yes, our species has a long tradition of turning threats into meals. It is how we show that we refuse to be intimidated. Zolkith nodded. The Council has reviewed the list of species that once threatened humans on their homeworld. It is a long list, and nearly every species on it is now either extinct, domesticated, or considered a food source. He let that sink in before continuing. The creature we call the Kethvorak, the terror of Sector Null. The nightmare that cost us 300,000 soldiers to contain, was defeated by 12 humans in 5 days. And then they ate it. Commander Gralanek added, still sounding slightly traumatized. Yes, Zolkith agreed. And then they ate it. With barbecue sauce, the High Arbiter straightened his crystalline form. Therefore, by unanimous decision of the Biological Assessment Council, humanity is hereby reclassified. The chamber held its breath. Humans are no longer designated Tier 9 prey species. They are hereby classified as Tier 1, apex predators. Furthermore, the Galactic Concord extends a formal apology for our initial misunderstanding and requests an alliance with the human species. The chamber erupted in noise. Some species cheered, others made sounds of concern, and a few seemed to be reconsidering their entire worldview. Elena stepped forward and raised her hand for silence. The people of Earth are honored by this reclassification, and we accept the Concord's offer of alliance. She paused, a small smile playing at her lips. But I must correct one small detail, High Arbiter. Zolkith tilted his crystalline head. Please, Ambassador, you call this Tier 1 apex predators, and while we appreciate the recognition, it is not quite accurate. We are not simply predators. We are something else. She looked around the chamber at the hundreds of alien faces watching her. We are adaptable. We are stubborn. We are creative and persistent and absolutely unwilling to accept limitations. We do not just hunt, we farm. We do not just fight, we negotiate. We do not just destroy our enemies. We sometimes make them our friends. Elena reached into her pocket and pulled out a small container. Inside was a piece of dried meat, carefully preserved. This is Kethvorak jerky, she said. We made it from the leftovers. And it represents everything we are as a species. She held up the container for all to see. We faced a monster that had terrorized the galaxy for 10,000 years. We lost friends and shed blood. And at the end, we turned that monster into a snack that I can carry in my pocket. That is who humans are, she continued. We do not just survive, we thrive. We take the worst the universe can throw at us, and we find a way to make it serve us. We are not the strongest species in the galaxy, and we are not the fastest. But we might just be the most stubborn. She smiled at the gathered aliens. And if you become our friends, we will bring that same stubbornness to your defense. We will stand with you against any threat, no matter how terrible. And when we win, we will celebrate together. Elena put the jerky container away. But if you become our enemies, well, we have a lot of recipes. The chamber was silent for a long moment, and then Commander Gralanek did something unexpected. He laughed. It was a deep, rumbling sound that echoed through the chamber. The fierce Torvan warrior was actually laughing. "I like these humans," he declared. "They are completely insane, and I like them." The tension in the chamber broke. Other aliens began making sounds of agreement or amusement. Even Zolkis crystals flickered in what might have been a smile. 6 months later, the young Vrexy diplomat who had first tasted Kethvorak meat arrived on Earth. His name was Vrixtel, and he had requested a cultural exchange assignment. His human guide, a cheerful woman named Sarah, took him to a place called Texas to experience what she described as the finest culinary tradition in human history. The building was modest, filled with wooden tables and the smell of wood smoke. Signs on the walls advertised something called brisket and pulled pork. Vrixtel sat at a table and watched as Sarah ordered for them both. Minutes later, a plate of smoked meat was placed before him. He took a bite. The flavor was incredible. Rich, smoky, complex. Nothing in his experience had prepared him for it. "This is remarkable," he said. "What creature did this come from?" "It is beef," Sarah said. "From a cow. We raise them specifically for food." Vrixtel stared at her. "You raise your own prey. We prefer the term livestock, but yes. We got tired of chasing our food around, so we started growing it ourselves." The Vrexy took another bite, his compound eyes glistening with what might have been tears. "I believe I understand humans now," he said softly. Sarah smiled. "Do you?" "Yes. You are the most terrifying species in the galaxy, and you hide it behind friendly smiles and delicious food. That is the nicest thing anyone has ever said about us." Vrixtel finished his meal in a state of confused bliss. When it was over, he contacted the Vrexy diplomatic corps with an unusual request. "I wish to apply for permanent residency on Earth," he announced. His supervisor was shocked. "Why would you want to live among humans?" "They are dangerous." Vrixtel thought about the brisket, about the Kethvorak jerky, about the humans who had faced a nightmare and turned it into a celebration. "Yes, they are dangerous," he agreed. "But they are also generous and creative, and they make the best food in the known universe. I would rather be their friend than their enemy." He paused. "Besides, they are teaching me something called pulled pork next week, and I do not want to miss it." Far across the galaxy, a new phrase had entered the common language. A warning passed.